over 200 service members have risen up and are asking for accountability from top brass. We're talking about top generals such as General Milley and even active duty admirals and generals as well right now from active duty service members, which I think is unprecedented in recent times. Terminal Chief Warrant Officer is an account which is ran by a former warrant officer, which says over 200 veterans active duty forces vow to hold military leaders accountable for COVID-19 vaccine mandate. It should be noted that across social media, even big influencers such as Angry Cops has made an entire video talking about blanket statements of essentially saying that religious exemptions and certain things that were legal and the constitutional rights were some things that were not abided by during this incident of the vaccine mandate going out. But now to see that people are actually in a formal letter coming out against it, we might see some legal action here, and this is what it has to say. It says, an open letter to the American people from signatories of the Declaration of Military Accountability. Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. John Adams. In the course of human events, it sometimes becomes necessary to admonish the lawless, encourage the fair-hearted, and strengthen the weak. We have reached just such a time in our history. The affairs of our nation are now steeped in avaricious corruption, and our once stalwart institutions, including the Department of Defense, are failing to fulfill the moral obligations upon which they were founded. Standing upon our natural and constitutional rights, we hereby appraise the American people that we have exhausted all internal efforts to rectify recent criminal activities within the armed forces. In the Declaration of Independence, our founding fathers sought separation. We seek no separation, but through this letter and the efforts we pledge herein, we pursue restoration through accountability. We intend to rebuild trust and restore the rule of law, particularly within the armed forces. Ultimately, we strive to once again become a moral people, restoring our nation and making it again worthy of the great gift of liberty won by the colonial era American people. While implementing the COVID-19 vaccine mandate, the military leaders broke the law, trampled constitutional rights, denied informed consent, permitted unwilling medical experimentation, and suppressed the free exercise of religion. Service members and families were significantly harmed by these actions. Their suffering continues to be felt financially, emotionally, and physically. Some service members became part of our ever-growing veteran homeless population. Some developed debilitating vaccine injuries, and some even lost their lives. In an apparent attempt to avoid accountability, military leaders are continuing to ignore our communications regarding these injuries and the laws that were broken. And he shows this list. I'll show it right below here where you can see these are all the generals, admirals, anybody in form of leadership that could have had any accountability as far as allowing this to happen. They are calling them out and they note this in the letter itself. These individuals enabled lawlessness and the unwilling experimentation on service members. The moral and physical injuries they helped inflict are significant. They betrayed the trust of service members and the American people. Their actions caused irreparable harm to the armed forces and the institutions for which we have fought and bled. These leaders refused to resign or take any other action to hold themselves accountable, nor have they attempted to repair the harm their policies and actions have caused. Since there is yet to be any accountability, the undersigned give our word to do everything morally permissible and legally possible to hold our own leadership accountable. We intend to rebuild trust by demonstrating that leaders cannot cast aside constitutional rights or the law of political expediency. The flag and general officers are far from the only ones complicit in recent illegal activities, as a significant number of SES leaders and political appointees contributed. Evidence indicates that other executive agencies are engaging in illegal activity. However, as service members and veterans, we feel particularly responsible for the Department of Defense and in accordance with our oaths. We will make every effort to demonstrate by example how an institution can put its own house in order. We, the undersigned, on behalf of hundreds of thousands of service members and the American people, while appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for guidance and purity of intention, mutually pledge to each other that we will do everything in our power through lawful word and action to hold accountable military leaders who failed to follow the law when their leadership and moral courage was most desperately needed. In the coming years, thousands within our network will run for Congress and seek appointments to executive branch offices, while those of us still serving on active duty will continue to put fulfilling our oaths ahead of striving for rank or position. For those who achieve the lawful authority to do so, we pledge to recall from retirement the military leaders who broke the law and will convene court-martial for the crimes they committed. For those of us who attain legislative offices, we pledge to introduce legislation to remove all retirement income for the military leaders who were criminally complicit, and we will ensure none serve in or retire from their senior executive service. This endeavor will be a continuous process with a long-term time horizon, but fulfilling our oaths to defend the Constitution requires just such persistent vigilance. Likewise, we are obligated and so commit to train those who come after us to fulfill their duty in achieving this accountability and safeguarding against such leadership failures hereafter. Our nation was once great because it was good. It was built on moral principles founded in natural law, and yet the recent acceleration of moral relativism has us headed towards a precipitous implosion. While all good things come to an end, we refuse to allow our nation to go quietly in the depths of decadence and decay. We promise to exhaust all moral, ethical, and legal means to restore the rule of law, and will begin by attempting to hold senior military leaders accountable. The Constitution is the supreme law of our land. We will fight to enforce that law and put an end to these tier justice system. My future generations see our efforts, and God willing, may they also be recipients of the great, can't say this word, of liberty that we have had the honor of safeguarding. Now, there has been a mixed bag of reactions to this, but, the first thing I see of this is like, is this like a form of mutiny? What are the legalities of this? I'm not a JAG officer to talk about that in that regard, but just reading a basic definition, let's see what it says. Mutiny, aka revolt, forcible or passive resistance to lawful authority, especially concerted revolt against discipline or a superior officer. The sailors staged a mutiny and took control of the ship. Now, this is active, passive. There's obviously legal definitions as well, but this is just very broadly stating this. But let's dive into some of the reactions online that have covered this. Active duty people were saying, I need to sign this, and he leads. And then the person below that said, should have made the thing public to sign. I'd sign it and know so many others that would. And it should be noted they are looking to amend or do some kind of pledging that you could do towards this to get the military leaders to be held accountable as well. But on the other side of the aisle, they have people that are saying this. Johnny Brahma writes, do we genuinely believe that the CJCS cares about what a mere 231 people have to say? And this person says truth. But below that, somebody says, 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence. It's not the numbers, but the message itself that is the revolution. Now, I want to do a little reflection with this because he is not wrong that this could blossom, could grow, could be the big thing that catapults and people start petitioning away that aren't even military, that are not even veterans. We've already seen some form of accountability where everyone agreed with this individual, but then what happened? And that token person is Stuart Scheller. That was from the Afghanistan pullout, which I would say was probably a bigger deal that people could have accounted for or asked for accountability from military leaders. Now that person lost their career. Those generals still serve on, even though there were judgments made that they agreed or didn't agree of how it turned out, what their intelligence was. And they, I'd say there were multiple dominoes that were coming across here, and this is just another one of those. And, some people could look at this as from the, this is what kicks off everything for these generals and admirals to be accountable. Or this could be another Stuart Scheller situation, which essentially means this would get under the rug, nobody would care about it, but it does look like there are people willing to sign this even more beyond what this was, and the traction could grow from this. And it should be noted that the military did release letters to people that were kicked out due to the COVID-19 vaccination issue. Like, well, we're allowing you to come back, right? But the damage has already been done. And to be honest with you, when I saw Angry Cops posted a video about the vaccine recall, I was like, that video's not going to do that well. It did phenomenally well for his channel. You can see the sentiments in the comments there where people are agreeing with similar stuff that we're seeing right here, where that is growing. And I will tell you that as the world is changing around us and you see the defined words of what they mean and how they hold weight, whether it's insurrection, whether it's accountability, whether it's mandatory, whatever these things are, the definitions matter, right? So I look at this and I'm like, I wonder how the military could spin this one into accountability or spin it into negligence or spin it into not being negligent, right? Because I think that's really what we're tiptoeing around. And then the last thing I want to get into here is it is kind of interesting how General Milley during his time as the Joint Chiefs of Staff was always like, I wasn't going to be around Trump because it was unconstitutional, be around the church and all these things. He always found himself bound to the Constitution and why he served the role that he did.
There's 2.1 million of us in uniform, and the American people can take it to the bank that all of us, every single one of us, from private to general, we're loyal to that Constitution and we'll never turn our back on it no matter what the threats, no matter what the humiliation, no matter what. If we're willing to die for that document, if we're willing to deploy to combat, if we're willing to lose an arm, a leg, an eye, to protect and support and defend that document and protect the American people, then we're willing to live for it too.
But for some reason, it didn't seem to apply here, or that was never addressed here. I would say I've never seen it across any platform as I follow this story very closely. But I just found that disparity to be quite interesting. I'd love to hear his take on how he disassociates the COVID-19 vaccine with the Constitution, which he does really find himself to fall back on all the time, but I'd love to see that. But as always, if you guys do like what I cover here on the channel, please make sure you like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. But as always, if you have questions, you guys hit me up over on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, TikTok, or down in the comments below. I love you guys. I'll see you next time.